Hello to everyone who is watching this video on YouTube. So there were requests for the Vienna game. So in this classroom, I am going to show some of my games and some other things about Vienna game. So let's start. So e4, e5, knight c3, knight f6, and yeah, in this position, basically there are two ways to play the Vienna game. One is f4 and the other one is g3. Obviously, in some games, white is playing bishop c4 in this move order, but yeah, that's rather the bishop's opening, and it also kind of gives this chance for black to immediately equalize with knight e4, which is, by the way, not our recommendation, but yeah, I'm just mentioning it. So f4 in this first game, this is, I believe, the most common move in this position, and it's really bad to accept the pawn because e5 is coming. So d5, f takes e4, knight e4, and in this game my opponent went d3, which I believe happens sometimes in both over the board and online games, and it's not as bad as it looks. It looks like that white is just blundering this queen h4 check, but things are not so easy. So it is, I believe, better to take on c3. So for example, after queen h4, now g3 is a must. Knight takes. It looks like that black is just winning, but white has knight f3 with a tempo, queen h5, now knight takes d5, black takes the rook, but white also takes the rook, and the position is extremely unusual and messy. Both kings are pretty weak in the center, and obviously it's much easier to trap the knight from white on a8, but it's also still possible for opponent to castle long. So it's really just a mess. Better not to go for such things. It is better just to take bc, and here basically there is one more move to know. Not like it's the end of the world if white manages to play d4, but you know, if black can play d4, then this pawn on e5 is just isolated from the rest of the pawns, and yeah, it's basically already advantage black. My opponent played knight to f3. I mean, he could have played c4, but then I just give a check. Bishop d2, queen e7, and I can weaken the dark squares by trading the bishop, and this pawn is most likely falling pretty soon. So it's also not too good. So he went knight f3, knight c6. I mean, of course, there was no reason not to take on c3, but I believe knight c6 is also good. Now he went bishop e2, and for some reason I was not taking this pawn, which is not good. I mean, I just have to take this pawn, and the pawn itself, I mean, is quite good. So it's on the third rank, but most importantly, after short castle, black can play this move queen d5, which is kind of the main point of having the pawn here. So black can continue with bishop e6, long castle, bishop c5, extra pawn, and it's not clear what white is doing in this position. So this would have been just a very easy way to continue the game and get a big advantage. Okay, so this d3 was the first line. So now, yeah, a little bit the order is not good. I mean, this d3 should have been somewhere else, but okay. First, I wanted to start with this g3 move, which is, I mean, which is possible, but less critical. The play is slower here, but okay, so how play goes here? So bishop to c5 is good. So basically, you know, as you see in previous videos in the course, we want to play d5 as quickly as possible, and here it is actually no exception, but the thing is that after d5, Take, bishop g2, knight c3, bc. This position is not so obvious. So it is some improvement to some other positions in the course. It is explained. So here white can play with rook b1, put some pressure here, maybe go some knight f3 d4 after castling. So this position is not super easy. I believe it's much easier to go bishop c5 and after bishop g2 to play d5 with the help of c6. Obviously, countless times I mixed up the move order by starting c6, which surprisingly is not such a bad move. So it is also possible, but there is no reason not to castle in this position, which I also did many times, of course. So but sometimes I start with c6. Okay, so in this game, c6 worked really well because whether black plays short castle or c6, the main thing after knight f3 is not to play something like d6, which would lead to some much slower positions. White may consider knight a4 later after d3. And it's not clear what black is doing. Black really wants to push this d5. So if d6 is played, it's not good. So knight f3, obviously it works better with short castle, but I still played d5 here, which is good. So that's the reaction to knight f3, not to allow the game to slow down, but still d5. My opponent castled here. If he wouldn't castle but takes the pawn, then I can just play e4. Knight moves and I take back the pawn. He can also take on e5, and I believe now I just take on e4. Here obviously you can see that if instead of c6 black would have castled, then already rook e8 is coming in the next move. But even here it's perfectly good for black. For example, if white would decide to grab the pawn, I believe already big issues on the e5. So my opponent went castle. I took on e4, and here after knight g5, the game would have been more or less normal. Black is completely fine, obviously, with more space there, but white can take back the pawn. But my opponent played knight takes on e5, and okay, I'm just showing this game that this is quite possible to lose very quickly here with white because I played queen d4, and the knight on e5 is trapped, right? So it has no every square is covered. So basically, the game was over at this moment. I don't even know what my opponent tried b4, but I could just take one more pawn. The knight is still trapped. Okay, I took the knight and also had a pawn, so just won easily. Okay, so next game. Yeah, next game is actually quite important for the move orders, because here I did not even play bishop c5. So obviously this is an older game, but I was not, I didn't know that this is important to start with bishop c5. So I played with c6. And yeah, this is what you have to know, that this is first bishop c5 is needed because my opponent played now a very good move. And basically, if you watched previous videos, this move shouldn't be that difficult because this is exactly what the repertoire suggests against the Ponziani opening. So, if I would flip the board, not flip the board, but rather flip the colors. So these are the moves e4, knight f3, c3 is the Ponziani, and with black, the repertoire suggests to go d5, which is d4 here. And this is very strong because now the pawn is hanging, and after ed, queen d4, this position would be very bad for white if knight c6 would be available, but it's not available. So with this move order, my opponent completely tricked me, and I had to play d6. I mean, black is already slightly worse. Okay, here my opponent took on played like this, and it was quickly equal. I mean, but of course you don't have to take. I mean, you just play, I don't know, knight e2, bishop g2, short castle, and you just play a normal game. So in any case, it's not good to start with c6. That's important. Okay, so next game, this is correct. This is also correct. So finally, correct move order. Knight g2 is the main line. So c6 and d5. So that's this is how black plays for d5 in this line with the command. And if white would play slowly, like d3 is possible, played in many games, I guess, but you can see that black already has somewhat more space in the center. I mean, the opening was a success. Rook e8 is possible, h6, many moves are possible, and black just has a good position. While this knight on e2, for example, is really bad. It cannot really go anywhere. So e d5 is the theoretical line. Black takes, and white goes d4. I mean, pretty much this is the only challenge for black. That after ed knight d4, there is an isolated pawn on d5, but yeah, I mean it's still a very good line for black because there is now bishop g4. A little bit confusing the pieces for white, so it's not ideal how pieces are placed. I mean, it's ideal, but it's just one move is missing, so to say, like h3, to finish development with bishop e3. Then it would be really nice for white. But after bishop g4, it's not so easy to find the correct move. I mean, f3 obviously is super bad because it weakens the diagonal. Bishop f3 is also pretty bad. I mean, bishop f3 is possible, but I guess this is even better to go for something like this. Double pawns there. Bishop is possible to take, so yeah, so everyone pretty much moves the queen here to d3 or d2, it doesn't matter. And now surprising move, black takes on d4, with the idea that after queen d4, it's possible to develop with the tempo and play knight c6. So here white has many moves with the queen, very rarely people find this queen c5, which is good. I mean, in the sense that it at least gives equal chances for white. Pretty much everything else, it's already better for black. Okay, my opponent actually in this game found queen c5, but in the next move he went wrong. He went, yeah, I believe knight d5 is already wrong. So in this position, h3 should be played from white, but yeah, it's anything but easy to find. So black's play is very simple. Rook is coming to c8, other rook is coming to e8, and yeah, with this pawn, white did not manage to blockade this pawn. Don't know what is. So yeah, so this is just very good for black unless white finds this h3. So my opponent went knight to d5, knight takes, queen takes, bishop takes. So white has the pair of bishops, seemingly the better structure. But actually better structure is not that obvious because this, when the isolated pawn is not blockaded, but it manages to reach the opponent's half of the board, like here the d4 pawn managed, then it can be a very strong pawn as it is now. So basically this pawn makes c2 a very serious target. Bishop f5, knight b4, or rook c8. There are such moves. Okay, I went rook e8, this was good. Rook e2 is the plan. Bishop d2, rook e2, rook d1, and now I played rook e5, attacking the rook and the bishop. Okay, so f3 was played, bishop h3, and basically black is winning some material here, rook a5. And yeah, after the end of this, at the end of this line, black was just up in exchange and later managed to convert this advantage. Okay, so now can show the kind of main move f4, so d5, fe knight e4, and okay, basically there are two moves here from white which are serious, everything else is bad, so it's either knight to f3 or queen to f3, and queen f3 is the, which is pretty much everyone is playing these days, and I don't know if it's better than knight f3. I believe in both cases black is doing really good. So against queen f3, the course is a very interesting recommendation. Very few games reached or was this move was played, which is bishop to e6. So the options for black here are different, like knight c6 is possible, taking obviously is possible, f5 is possible, but yeah, this bishop e6 is very rare, but quite interesting. So black is just continuing the development, and white cannot really, you know, just continue the development. I mean, the whole point of queen f3 is to ask this knight to go somewhere. I mean, if the knight is not going anywhere, like black ignores the attack, then you know what white is doing. I mean, this knight is not developing, this bishop is, I mean, not developing anywhere. So the only critical move is obviously to accept this pawn, but it leads to very interesting positions which are much more fun for black than for white. So here my opponent tried d3, which was also tried actually today in my stream against me, and it leads to this pawn structure of knight takes, b takes, and just c5 I played here. So you can see here the huge advantage compared to the lines of knight c6, that now the knight will be behind the pawn, making it super difficult for white to play d4, which means of course that the e5 pawn is weak, which means that the c3 pawn is a target, and yeah, I mean, black can also just castle long if he wants. So yeah, this position is already better for black, so that's why this d3 is not good, and yeah, the game went quite well. So knight c6, attacking the pawn, again attacking on e5, h6, I mean, very useful to have this g5 idea, h4, long castle, h5, king b8. I mean, black has all the time in the world. Just look at white's pieces, like struggling a lot. I mean, these are also just protecting the pawn. So rook b1, king a8, knight c1. I mean, it's not even clear that where this knight is going, but at least bishop e2. Short castle is the plan, and okay, here I started to misplay the position a little bit. I mean, d4 was fine, but there is just a very easy way for black, and there is nothing else needed. I should have played just rook to g8. The idea is super simple, to play g5. If white takes, then take back and go again g5. So for example, bishop e2, g5. Okay, even with the rook it's good. So queen has to guard both e5 pawn and g2 pawn. Does it from h2, and for example, queen a5, bishop d2, queen a4. Absolutely disastrous position for white. There is a weak pawn here, a weak pawn here, weak pawn here. Black can continue with bishop g7, maybe double later on the g file. I mean, it's just a huge advantage for black, so that's why this d3 is not good. And now moving to the next game. So the critical obviously is to accept this pawn, takes, and here black's point with bishop e6 is of course to play bishop d5, attack the queen. Queen has many moves, but all has some problems, as it is explained in the course. Here my opponent decided to play queen e3, which looks very logical to keep this pawn protected, threaten to play knight f3 maybe next. Here the problem is that there is a check on h4. Obviously, it's not very good to block this with the pawn because, I mean, for example, queen e4 and this rook is trapped on h1. So yeah, and in case white blocks with the queen, like queen g3, then there is a check, taking back the pawn on c2, or if the king moves, again, it's not much fun for white. And in case of queen f2, again, queen e4 is fine, but even just taking and playing knight c6 is very good. So easily recapturing this pawn, bishop c5 is coming, maybe knight b4 is an idea. So yeah, black is doing very good. So queen h4 check, my opponent went king d1. I just go knight c6, knight f3. Pretty logical, and now queen g4. Bishop e2. I mean, yeah, it's hard to say what is correct for white because king stays in the center. Very difficult to bring out the pieces, and black is just playing a move like long castle. Maybe later have threats like bishop c5 because if it's taken, then the knight can be taken. So yeah, really not easy. So bishop e2 was played. I took the pawn. Queen h3, c3, long castle, d4. So the material is equal, but white's king is in the middle for basically no reason, not even extra material. I just played f6 and reached a much better position. Like this e file is open, g file is open, and okay, here I played bishop d6, allowing the endgame, which is also winning for black, but it was actually much easier to play h5, not to allow the trade of the queens and play bishop d6 next. But in any case, the position is close to winning for black. Okay, so next game, take. Again, this queen e3, queen h4, knight c6. And in this position, instead of giving back the pawn with bishop e2, my opponent goes b3, which is kind of logical. Wants to play bishop b2, maybe also move away the king from the pin. But here I played bishop c5, which is apparently quite unpleasant. But you can see the whole idea of this opening line of bishop e6. Just, give up a pawn, opponent's king is in the middle, all pieces are out, long castle is coming. Yeah, queen c5, bishop takes, king e1, obviously cannot be taken because then the rook is lost. And yeah, I just took the pawn here, queen e4. I mean, basically this is kind of a forced line, and after trading everything, I just played g6, and okay, the material is equal, but look at this pawn structure of white, and yeah, rook can come to d8, or even rather long castle, and then rook h to e8. I very quickly won the e5 pawn, and then later the game. One more game against the same opponent. I mean, he's very strong, like over 3,000 in chess.com, so like really, really strong player. But yeah, this bishop e6 not so easy to play against. So he took again and played queen f4, which may be a better move because it still holds the pawn and also holds the square on h4. So maybe a little bit more difficult for black. Knight c6. He played c3. So here there is a line which goes like d4. I mean, this looks very logical, but actually it's not so great because black has knight b4. Extremely unpleasant. And if white would just say, okay, I protect with bishop d3, I mean, it's not so easy because bishop g2. So basically you either protect with the king, I mean, which normally nobody wants to do, or you protect with your queen. So once you protect with your queen, again under attack, now you don't protect with anything anymore. So knight c2 is coming, and there is this line of bishop b5, c6, bishop a4, which would maybe playable if not for the move of queen a5. So this just decides the game. Attack here, discovered attack on the king, I mean, especially with knight d3, so black is losing a lot of material, white is losing a lot of material in the game as well. So my opponent went c3, not allowing knight b4 and preparing d4. I just went bishop e7, he went knight f3, I castle, he went bishop c4. So here he should have played, I mean, something else, d4, bishop e2, but black is just playing these standard moves like f6, opening the position more for the king. Really difficult for white to play this. I mean, objectively it may be fine, but very difficult. But my opponent went bishop c4, which is actually not good for a couple of reasons even, and I decided to take the piece. But according to the engine, which is again quite instructive, it's just much better not to take material, but just just regain this pawn, but fully open the position against this king is much better than gaining a piece and being under some attack or weaken the king. Here, material is equal, rook is coming to e8, different threats in the position. Black is much better. So what I did instead is I played g5. My opponent went queen g4, I went h5. So now he cannot protect the bishop anymore, but he took bishop c4, and you can see that that my king is a little bit open here. Okay, I was like, there are no pieces. I mean, I also have threats with queen d3. I mean, it shouldn't be that bad. He went d4 and I played bishop d3. And indeed, the position is better for black, but maybe it could have gotten a little bit more complicated. But okay, eventually I won very quickly, but so a few moves were like this, and I managed to keep the files closed. Also, there was no check. Bishop was extremely good in defense, so yeah, I managed to win. Okay, so next game, actually no game, that was the last game. So just I brought to you 3 positions that you can try to solve if you want with pausing the video. So okay, not yet. So here white plays short castle. Now you can pause the video for a minute or two and try to find a move. So here the good move is knight b4, as in so many cases in this variation, the problems are on c2 and sometimes even on a2. So that also shouldn't be underestimated, because knight a2 looks very ugly, but it's a pawn, and then later the bishop can be taken, but obviously c2 is the main target. So white plays knight to e1, and now of course not knight takes a2, which I guess is possible, but absolutely not needed. Just it would even open the rook. So just look at this white's pieces, f6, just opening the f-file. Black is so much better developed for only one pawn. It's a really good position. So the next one obviously is, you can recognize from the structure that it is this c6 d5 variation, where black already traded bishops. So here white plays knight to e4. Okay, actually it's not that much of an exercise, to be honest, but you can try to find a move after knight takes e4. So of course queen e4 is not good, because rook is winning material. But after rook e4 you can try to find the good move. So please pause the video for a minute or two if you would like to do so. Again, the key thing is of course that black would like to target this c2 pawn, but it's not possible because there is this pressure on the 4th rank, and maybe bishop b2 can be played as well. So the good move is to play f5. kick back the rook. And if the rook is going to e1, then knight b4 is already possible with the attack, with the check coming, also pressuring the pawn. And if the rook is not going to e1 but going to e2, then the problem is that this very easy move of rook e8. You know, white is just missing one move to basically to be able to fight for the e5. So this is also extremely bad with the weak light squares around the king. And the last one, basically, it's also, I believe, in this introduction page of the course, so I can show it from the beginning, this line of knight f3. So here bishop c5 is the course, creating some threads on f2. So normally it's d4, bishop b4, and now that's the difference. That's why not bishop b4 immediately, for example, because now it's a pin and the c3 knight is hanging. So bishop d2, c5, bishop b5 check, knight c6. I mean, this is one of the main lines of this knight f3 chapter. Now trade, and okay, here knight takes c3 is played, bc, but now your task is to figure out that why was this played. So again, for 2 minutes, you can stop the video and maybe try to find a move. So if you found c4, that's very good. So actually what black is doing here is that it's saying that this knight is super bad, and by trading all the other pieces, this bishop will be very nice on f5. Queen can come to a5. These pawns are fixed as weaknesses, and basically white has no choice in this position, has to take on c6, because whatever you move you make, black moves the knight, and a6, b5 traps the bishop. White could have a lot of moves in this, like anything can try, but not gonna save this bishop. So must take on c6, and after bc, black has an excellent position. Rook can come to b8, bishop can go to f5, queen goes to a5, just attacking these weak pawns everywhere. And the knight is pretty useless here. It takes a long time to maneuver it to somewhere, which is good. Like, I don't know, maybe something like this is, but it takes at least 4 moves. 3 with the knight and 1 with the rook. I mean, there is simply no time for that. So yeah, in this position also, black is just better. So thanks a lot for watching this video. This was about the Vienna, and yeah, if you have any questions, comments, or would like to see some other opening about the course, just let me know. If not, probably not King's Indian, but King's Gambit is in the next one. So hope to see you for that one as well. Thank you for watching. Bye.